afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invitation along. It's always hard, these sessions going last, because you're trying to sort of add something new. I think fundamentally I agree with a lot of the content that Damien and Colm have put out. And there's a pack for everybody in the audience today. You should have got one on the way in. We've actually just, as Sil said, we've just launched our Irish retail and consumer research. It's part of a global benchmark. And really today I'm actually going to give some views on the trends and I suppose the impact on the grocery store. But then I'm going to try to back it up with sort of where Irish consumers are at the moment. So actually the nice thing about this, it's Ireland was part of 27 countries, so we can actually benchmark ourselves against the UK, the US, China, and in theory we can sort of see where the future is going to go. So I hear a lot at the moment about stores are dying and they're not going to be around and all of that. I mean, I fundamentally dispute that. I think the grocery store has come through immense change over the years. So if we go back to sort of Second World War time, where it was kind of sort of counter service, sort of post the lift of rationing and everything in the UK, we headed into sort of the first supermarkets have opened up at like Sainsbury's and everything in the UK. And then you move into the sort of the 60s and the 70s, where essentially you moved into sort of the first scanning machines. So we moved out of metal guns into scanning. We moved into sort of self-scan. So the industry has continually evolved. And some of my colleagues kind of spoke about it's an experiential. People still want to go to stores. And I certainly believe that the industry is going to continue to evolve. I certainly think in terms of Ireland, if you look at convenience, we have one of the highest standards in the world. If you look at the likes of what sort of what the Musgrave Group is doing, what the BWG Group is doing, even the likes of Evoke and everything, and where they're driving experiential retailing. So I think in terms of Ireland, we certainly have a high benchmark and we're leading the way. And we're going to continue to change, and that change isn't sort of, it's about I don't think it's revolution, I think it's evolution. And I think, and Colm sort of spoke about trends 5 to 10 years out, I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to continue to evolve in the same way as we move from metal guns, used for price labels, onto cans of beans to scanning machines. But fundamentally, some of the changes that people talk about sort of revolutionising the industry are actually here now. So if we start with the top right hand, the Co-op last week just announced they're putting self-scan on the phone into 100 stores. I think Musgraves are looking at it at the moment as well. So ultimately I believe within grocery, we'll start to see grocers within the next number of years actually open up stores without checkouts because we just do it on a phone. Massive opportunity for retailers then to drive costs out of the business, build smaller stores, reduce the cost base, but hopefully not take all the cost out, hopefully invest some of that cost actually back into customer services within the stores. Augmented reality, we're seeing that coming through as well at the moment, and we're seeing a lot of brands sort of now start to play with the mobile phone and provide customers with experience on the mobile phone as they shop. Amazon Alexa, it's here, but it's not connected up to the ecosystem as it is in the States at the moment. So yeah, I can tell it sort of turn on Morning Ireland for me, and it's not really adding that much value. It's not really solving a problem in Ireland for me at the moment. But look at the US, I can talk to Alexa now in the morning, it can put a product straight into my Amazon basket or my Whole Foods basket, and then I'll come on to talk about some of the challenges, but I think Colm is dead right. The risk is to brands, and a lot of you are brands people. How do you get your brands into somebody's basket, into somebody's shopping online basket? But ultimately Amazon now are trying to sort of take control of that, really reduce the range and actually put what they want into the basket. And the extra mile, actually going the extra mile and that sort of last mile service. We're seeing trends at the moment. Look at the food services industry. Just Eat, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, that has revolutionised the food services industry. And retailers have a problem with getting consumers their product quickly. And that's, I'll show you our stats, but consumers want products quicker now. We've Uber Eats landing in Ireland next year. So if we start to see some of the thinking around how the food services industry has revolutionised itself, apply that to retail, we're going to see dramatic change within retail. So all of these things are happening at the moment. And I think that it's an exciting time, but to me, it's incumbent on retailers and brands now to really start to understand some of these trends and understand how you apply that within your business. Colm touched on some of the technologies. I'm not a technology expert, but I mean, sort of the likes of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, and associated. So the likes of Bitcoin, drones, augmented reality, they're all starting to change how businesses run at the moment. And again, these are starting to play a real part in our world. Just some thoughts myself before I get into our research findings. I mean, kind of at a high level, online is going to grow, and I think Damien rightly pointed to 0.5% or something of retail. Groceries broadly, like there's no hard figure. I don't know exact sort of figure for it in Ireland, but we estimate probably 3% of all grocery in Ireland is online. The reason it's low, I think a factor is you've got Dunnes Stores, Aldi and Lidl, 50% of the market aren't online, so our potential to buy online is seriously reduced. And then you have a good chunk within the Musgrave group. You have a good chunk of the Musgrave online spend through SuperValu going into the old Superquinn stores, which is very much a Dublin market. You look to the UK, where we estimate, again, it's probably 8-9% of grocery has gone online in the UK. Still relatively small, I think for the amount of discussion and attention it gets, still relatively small, but it's probably much bigger in urban areas, and obviously with large urbanisation in the UK, it makes grocery online retailing much easier because you have density of population. So ultimately online is going to grow. I think as brands, that's going to challenge you within your category. So Jamie mentioned water. Water as a category, we've seen a very much shift online. So as a category, a retailer is going to start to sort of have to cut space of that category within their store. And then you need to start to think about your own promotional spend within the category. So if you're in a category that's going to see a shift online, well, how do you promote that category in store now? What's the conversation you're having in front of the retailer when you're sitting down in front of them and sort of agreeing your JVP up front? Again, Colin mentioned the likes of IoT, voice, AI. That's all going to change the path to purchase. So if I'm ordering now toilet paper and I have a connected Alexa at home, I just say, Alexa, toilet paper, what's Alexa going to put in? Is it going to be my brand that I always buy? How do you as a brand then get your product into this space? How do you run promotions? It's different now because you're not control. At least when you're agreeing a gondola end sitting in front of Musgraves, well, you've some influence over it. But now you've Amazon sort of trying to eat your lunch, and your ability to influence that is going to be limited. Grocery store is going to evolve, and probably checkouts I think is a key thing. Like a big investment in the store is the capital expenditure with physically putting in checkout systems, and then the ongoing OPEX in terms of maintaining it and having somebody out to clean the scanner when it cracks and everything. All that in theory can actually be taken away now, and the consumer through their mobile phone is essentially providing the capex. So I just go in now, I'll check in the SuperValu, I'll walk around, I'll do my scan, and I just pay on the way out. They may still maintain some checkouts because ultimately not everybody's going to want to use a mobile phone scanning. But ultimately, I think if you roll the clock forward, that's the way it's going to be. Consumers are going to engage differently. As I said, as a category shifts online, how am I engaged? How's your product now being engaged with by the consumer on the shelf? So baby is a good example as well. We've seen a lot of baby has gone on to online. So consumers consumers ultimately going to be dwelling less at your category. If you're bringing in brand extensions or product extensions, but the consumer isn't standing in front of the shelf actually seeing the new type of baby wipe, it makes sure that provides a challenge back to you. And then home delivery and store collection. We're definitely going to see home delivery grow, but the challenge for retailers and for brands that decide to go direct is how do you actually manage it, because it's hard to recoup the cost of home delivery. And I'll give you some stats on home delivery because consumers are becoming much more demanding. It's kind of like I order it now, I want it now, I'm not waiting for 3 days anymore. So that's just some initial sort of thoughts on where I think things may go. I don't think it's anything that Damien and Colin beside me haven't touched on already. But just some consumer insights now. And again, so I think it's always good to get Irish consumer insights. And as I said, so this was the survey completed last November across 27 of our territories. You can see the rough countries there, sort of in a maroon, is it, or whatever. As I said, the nice thing about having Irish data is we can actually compare ourselves and see very much where the trends are going to go. So it's 1,000 Irish consumers, and the whole topic was around online spending. The first question in the survey was actually, do you shop online? So only 5% said no. If you said no to your first question, you got dropped out of the survey. So 95% of the bunch we went out to, 95% are all online shoppers. And there's 5 key messages have come out from our survey. And again, we've really alluded to a lot of these this morning, but online is obviously going to grow, but off mobile as a platform. So really, mobile is going to become the shopping tool of the future if it hasn't already started now. And again, I'll give you some numbers around that. Challenge then for retailers is how do you get seen in a mobile? So when we think about mobile, figures a couple of years ago used to show that people were doing their research on a mobile, so you'd be on the Lewis or the Dart or the bus going to work and you'd research on the mobile, but then you get home onto your laptop or your desktop and you'd actually make the purchase on your larger device. Now consumers are actually bypassing that. The full path to purchase is on your mobile phone. So how do you get seen? So for grocery brands, and I know Unilever have done, I've seen some presentations by them at the IGD, Unilever have done a lot of work in terms of working out the imagery. So when a consumer is actually on the mobile phone, kind of scrolling up and down through a product category, the images are fit for purpose and the consumer is able to connect with them. Because you're going to see, like your online shopping basket is going to look very different on mobile compared to a laptop sitting at home. So that's something that you need to consider. The store is going to continue to evolve. I think Colm's touched on that. It's going to change. It's not going to be the same. But I believe the fundamentals are going to be there. I think the centre of the grocery store is at risk. So the items that become automated, where artificial intelligence, voice ordering comes into play, are going to start to decrease, and the emphasis on from the retailers will become the outer walls of the store, focusing on fresh. Data is more than insights. I'll talk about that. Really, only 1% of the data we say that we hold about our consumers we actually extract any value from. It's really important. Social is the new media, so it's very much moved online, moved onto social, but for a certain demographic. And actually, at the panel discussion this morning, Colin Gordon from Glanbia spoke about their sort of multi-brand strategy. So there's certain brands so he's certain brands that he'll only use social media for, and these other brands he'll use sort of a lot more sort of above the line traditional type advertising, and getting the last mile right is critical. So just going to work through some of these for a couple of minutes. Mobile has become the standard, and what we see is 25% of all Irish consumers are shopping weekly or more frequently. That increases with age. So you get up into your 25 to 34-year-olds, nearly 40% of those are shopping online weekly or more frequently. This isn't only grocery, I should say, this is total retail online shopping. But I think where the interesting figures are is look over to the right. The UK is at 51%. Now we try to delve into that a wee bit. I mean, I think a big factor behind the UK being so much higher is urbanisation, so big sort of, like you've London, a big sort of global city, and then other regional large cities. So the population of Manchester essentially nearly the size of Ireland. I think the whole motorway structure means that so the likes of Amazon, ASOS, etc., can open up a relatively small number of distribution centres that can have wide access to the entire country relatively quickly. We'd ultimately sort of lack that scale here. Looking at New York City, actually, 57% of New Yorkers shop online weekly or less. So again, there is a big urbanisation message here. But as Dublin gets bigger, as we extend out, I think the latest, we're going to see by 2040 an additional 1 million people in the Republic of Ireland. So we're going to see big population growth. A big chunk of that's going to be in Dublin. Actually, an interesting thing as well, we've seen the trend over the next 5 years, the over 65s are growing at 4 times the rate. Somebody's phoning me now, put that away. The over 65s are growing at 4 times the rate of the rest of the population. So again, as a brand, how do you consider older people? Over 65s, we're living longer, we're more active, we're fitter, we're more interested in our diet. So how are you sort of looking at your pack sizes? I think older shoppers are going to have smaller trolley sizes, they're going to shop more frequently. So again, how are brands reformulating and redesigning to take account of that? And they're also much more tech savvy as well. So don't forget the over 65s when you're planning your strategies. And China's out there, 68%. Essentially, China bypassed desktops and laptops and went straight to mobile. A lot of it was because people are outside cities. They don't have the connectivity, so it's all to the 4G networks. But ultimately, the trend is it's growing, and it's growing onto mobile. So you can see there, 29% of mobile spend is more or less 29% of online spend is coming off the back of mobile at the moment. Look to the UK, it's 41%, and we've just done some projections to say within the next 5 years, we estimate 50% of all online spend is going to come off the back of mobile. So again, you need to consider your own websites. Come back to my point about it, imagery on the websites and the imagery you're feeding into the Musgraves and the Tesco's for their online sites. As a consumer, if your image is sort of fairly crap, I'm not going to stop to buy your product because we're just scrolling. Think of our own behaviours on the mobile phone. We just scroll down. And in terms of mobile payment, I haven't included on the slide, but I think I figure like 34% of respondents said they're more likely to shop in a store that has a mobile payment option compared to those that don't. So for those retailers in the room, or food service operators, or anything, really tap and go is essentially the future. I think myself, I just got a new phone last week, and all weekend I was like a child going around town with Apple Pay tapping and going, and it's just frictionless. Hey, like just totally frictionless. So for the retailers, really you need, and it's not just retailers. If you're an independent coffee chain, if you've got 2 shops, you still got to be able to allow your consumers to go in and tap and go. Order ahead. Actually, we had Frank Leeson, the MD of Aramark, in this morning as well, who owns Avoca, and one thing he really spoke about was from their food services businesses actually making it easy for people in their staff restaurants and everything to essentially come in, order ahead, and they're actually implementing new technology now where you can put your tray onto a platform. There's a camera above it. It knows what's on your tray, and it takes it off your phone automatically. So this is, and that's technology that they're trialing, and that's what the consumers want. Colin spoke with Amazon, and I suppose I've touched on it as well. Amazon is interesting. 67% of Irish consumers said they're shopping regularly on Amazon. That's not 89 or 90% in the UK, heads up to 93% for some, I think, as you head towards the US. What I haven't shown you, as you shop more on Amazon, you shop less on other retailers' websites, you shop less on other brands' websites, and you shop less in stores. So Amazon isn't in Ireland yet. We're serviced out of the UK. I personally think as our population starts to grow, I think Amazon will look to open a distribution centre in Ireland and look to service the Irish market. You would assume that Northern Ireland is a natural fit because of it's easy to get to. Post-Brexit, depending where it goes, I don't know, but it certainly feels like if Amazon comes to if Amazon comes in onto the island, it really is going to cause a challenge. But what Amazon are really doing interestingly is Amazon Prime, so this whole subscription model. And it's a relatively low number, but 17% of the 670 respondents actually have Amazon Prime. And 77% say they think it's good value for money. I kind of get that, because I'm going to pay somebody for something, I'm going to say I think I'm getting good value for money. But as I look to the other countries, the likes of the US, that penetration of Amazon shoppers that have Amazon Prime is much higher. Because it's kind of solving more problems for them. So Amazon Prime now, I can't get free deliveries because it's kind of, a lot of those guys don't provide into the UK anyway, so I've less potential to use the service. But you would assume if they're to come in and grow, they're certainly going to challenge the grocery sector. All sectors, to be honest. Categories have shifted online. I know there's a fair bit on here, but really what we're trying to get people to think about, if your category's down here, you haven't really shifted online. So if you're in household, so if you're selling white goods, furnitures, sort of grocery, DID, sort of DIY, you're very much still an offline retailer. But look to the guys who have shifted online, clothing, fashion, etc. What we're trying to get people to do is understand, well, if my number is there in terms of some percentage of my consumers' purchases shifts online, what's it going to do to my business? And you only have to look to the booksellers, to the music sellers, look at HMV, look at Extravision. I know it's not online, they were gone, it was before online. But you've got to imagine yourself as your category, what percentage of your category shifting online gives you a problem? If you're in the baby category and you see 25% of your category shift online out of stores, what's that doing to your So we kind of just try to get people to actually just do some scenario planning on the back of that. Store continues to evolve. We kind of heard the messages here this morning, but the key message Irish consumers told us is they're not happy with the service in stores, and they're not happy with the level of product knowledge that sales associates have in stores. And it's actually down on last year. So you think about this, it's now easier for me to shop by going online, so you need to make the experience really, really good when I come into the store. We had Catherine Castley, the marketing director from Irish Distillers this morning. She kind of spoke about how they're using brand ambassadors to actually educate the retailers. So she's sending people out to O'Brien's, for example, the wine chain, to sort of bring them up to speed on how to sell cask whiskies and all of these things. So again, as brands, you need to understand how are you working with your retailers to actually educate the people on the shop floor, because don't assume that the guy on the shop floor is going to have all the knowledge. AI, the majority of us said we don't have an AI device 69%, and we don't plan to have one in the future. I think next year that'll be lower, and that'll be lower. As soon as these AI devices, so Alexa, for example, becomes meaningful, connected to an ecosystem, solves my problem, we're going to start to put them into our homes. If you'd asked me 20 years ago would I have a mobile phone that size, I'd say no. So I think we're all, the change curve there will apply. If I look at that figure for the likes of China, it's something like that 69, I think it's equivalent of 23 for them. So again, I look to the US as well, isn't as high as China, but eventually I believe these sort of Amazon devices are going to sort of weave their ways in, actually end up in our homes. I was in a Whole Foods there last year, heading to Christmas down in Florida, and you go in now and they have a pallet of Amazon Echoes beside the pallet of bananas. So they're making it that easy to buy, $99. Just pop it into the trolley. There you go. I'm now connected into the Amazon ecosystem. Data, conscious of time here. And I agree with a lot of stuff Colin sort of spoke about in terms of personalisation, make it really relevant to me. But consumers have said that they're becoming more comfortable with the personalisation, but don't track me. So when I'm walking in front of your store down Grafton Street, don't send me a message telling me I have a deal for you, because we're just sort of damaging trust. That's going to improve over time. We've seen, again, other more mature online markets much more comfortable with it. And social is the new media. And that's fair enough, but for a certain age, we have like 94% of under 24s have said that they use social media to inspire their purchases, and they're going to be your shoppers in the future. But not all shoppers, as you look at age there, are going to be in the same boat. So as you create your sort of your media campaigns, you really need to understand your different pockets of customers and build that campaign around them. And again, the guys on the panel spoke this morning about trying to provide real, rich, meaningful, shareable information to those younger cohorts. The last mile, younger consumers want their product quicker. So what we have seen is customers have told us that 77% have said that they actually want to pay for same or next day delivery. So the challenge for grocery is actually extracting some of these sort of payments from customers, but the reality is there now, the younger the customer, the more quickly they want that stock. So again, retailers need to figure this out, because this is a real challenge. Now the food service industry has tackled it well through partnerships with Deliveroo, etc. So what's that thinking within retail that can take it, that can help sort of with that pain point? I think one thing from retail and for brand people in the room, you need to consider, as partnerships evolve and somebody else is delivering your product, let's say SuperValu, if somebody else is delivering that product on their behalf, well, what happens if something happens with the product on the way? Your product is now damaged. Is it who do they have the issue with? Is it the delivery guy? Is it the brand? So as we start to sort of see much more disintermediation come into our supply chains, just how do you control your brand is a challenge. There are the 5 points. And finally, I just sort of say, really just some closing thoughts. I do think we're going to see checkout-free stores coming. If not fully checkout-free, certainly a much smaller amount of checkouts. We've seen it with self-scan already. All the big guys are moving into self-scan. Promotion's going to change over the years. And again, I think Damien did make some good points in terms of, and it's probably very much driven by the retailers. Retailers want a certain amount of promotions and they want to be seen to be doing it because that's how they're keeping market share. But eventually, as we see big shifts within categories, somebody's going to have to say the current promotional strategy and payments just don't work. Alexa, I've spoken about, and the last mile in terms of how do retailers actually tackle that last mile and get products more quickly to consumers when they want it. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Thank you for your attention.